Welcome to the Business Unscripted podcast. We're here to share real-life insights, practical strategies, and the honest lessons that we have learned from our own mistakes because, frankly, we have been in your shoes. So whether you need help with operations, accountability, financial knowledge, sales, or maybe just getting your mindset right, we are here, and this is the right spot for no-fluff conversations and tools that work. So grab your favorite cup of joe. Let's jump into the show. All right. Welcome to another episode of the Business Unscripted podcast. Hope you guys are having a fantastic Friday morning, or maybe you're just getting started. So as I said in the pre-show, grab your favorite cup of joe and let's jump into the show. So welcome to end another week with us. As you notice, it's just me and my son here today. So Torn is not here. Torn's got other things that came up. So we wish you well, sir. Hope all is well. For those of you that are watching, if you're an aspiring business owner, or maybe you are in business and you are looking for some motivation, some strategies, insights, and tactics, you're in the right spot. So what we do is we're pretty much all my life, and I'm sharing several strategies, things that I've gone through in my life, and things that I share with my clients as well, and struggles that they've gone through and what we've done and steps we've taken to overcome. But today, as I mentioned last week, my son is on spring break, so he's joining me in the office, and he's joining me here on the podcast today as well. He joined us last week, had some very good questions. I think there was some good feedback there. And so you're going to join me again. Welcome to another episode, sir. How are you?
Good. Good to be back.
Good to be back. I think we'll have to do more of these, right?
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah? When you're not in school on Friday mornings.
Well, yeah.
So you said it's fun. What do you enjoy about the experience of being on a podcast?
I just like talking.
Yeah?
I like talking.
No.
You do that.
For those of you that know my son, so he loves to talk. You do talk a lot. But it's okay. You talk, I think it's a good thing. There's never a quiet moment, which is good.
Never awkward silence.
No. You definitely fill that void for sure. So what has been, obviously last week, it was probably your first one, like a real podcast. Like in school, like you kind of recorded some podcasts and things like that. But what stood out to you about the entire process of doing something like this, or go live, live episode? What kind of stood out to you?
Well, you can't redo it. Mumble or stuff.
Yeah.
I stutter. And so it's funny because when you do it for school, you can take it 50 times and redo it every time. But when you do it here, you stutter. It's just it just happens.
Hey there, welcome. Well, if you have questions, if you have thoughts, etc., feel free to share them down below. I hope you guys are having a great day. As I said, we're here to talk business, talk strategy, but answer questions. Obviously my son's still in high school, so it's not like he's in business, but he's going through business classes as well. So it's always good to hear his experiences from the younger generation. I think we talked last week, right, where I said that as individuals like myself, we get old, right, or even more successful people that are getting elderly as well. It's all about legacy, and it's about how can we teach the younger generation. So I think there's a lot of hesitation sometimes, myself included, when I was growing up, that I didn't want to approach somebody who was successful. I didn't want to approach somebody who was, doing what I wanted to do because I thought that they wouldn't have time, But ultimately, getting to that stage, I know that I would rather share that experience, talk through it, right, teach, because it's when you get to the point, which you will eventually, you start thinking like, what's going to be left when I'm gone? Now I got, as you said yesterday, I got a lot of time left, hopefully, but it's still, you start to think about that. So you really want to, if you're younger, or if you're kind of watching this and you felt that same way, or maybe you've been afraid to reach out and have a conversation with somebody, it just takes a message. You never know. Having a good mentorship, having good a support system around you that can help you reach where you want to go, that's awesome. And it's the number one factor in people who actually reach there. they have good mentors, they have good, kind of motivation around them. So, but cool. So, you're right. You can't make up anything, which is why in today's day of AI, you know, it's so important to do these things when you're in business, uh, because, as you said, you can't make it up. So it helps build that expertise of knowing what you know and how you can help people, and it helps to uh, your potential clients, right? Your prospects see you, and they know that it's not AI because it's really. I'm sure eventually there'll be some sort of live product where AI people can do AI lives, which again, why would you want to do that? But I'm sure it'll be there. But I think now these are the things that you should be paying attention to and doing more of if you're in business or if you're looking to kind of build sort of like a community. How can you get in front of that person? Yes, you can have AI content, you can have AI like videos and copy and stuff like that to kind of keep the process going and keep the awareness. But ultimately, you have to have some sort of live communication with your audience, or else you're not really growing the community, right?
Mhm.
So was there anything else from the first kind of episode that stood out to you, or about the process itself that stood out to you?
Not that jumps off my head immediately.
No?
No.
Was it as simple as you thought?
Yeah, it was pretty straightforward, yeah.
Right. And then did you ever realize what goes in after a show?
No. I never really thought that you had that all the stuff that was into it afterwards.
Right. So, essentially, if you're thinking of getting into business or whatever, and so the idea, right, would be you do something like this, live, long form, and then afterwards you take it and then into something shorter that can again continue to reach, especially with YouTube Shorts, Facebook Reels, things like that. Um, but that process, right, is not just set it and get it right. It's not just a one step. Hey, it's cut and then it's done. There's a few steps that you want to go to make sure that it gets posted. And so for myself, we've talked about it on the show. So our work, right, we use a couple softwares. One we use Wizard, kind of take the long form and then cut it and flip it into shorter form content, and then we take that and go into a software called Captions, and then Captions is what sort of, as one states, right, actually adds captions to some of it, but then the other one is the AI edit, which when it does some of the transitions and some of that cool sort of editing features and the B-roll and all that kind of stuff, which as a small organization, we don't necessarily have a big marketing team to do that. And then from there, we use software called Repurpose, which helped us actually post it out to all the different platforms once we kind of finalize it. So having a tech staff that like that is important to take something like this on a Friday morning that's an hour, hour and a half, and then turn it into your content for the next week and a half. And so it's really important to dial that in, figure out what you're doing, and then from there it becomes routine. But if you did it for high school, right? You probably just did, oh, let's just record like a 15-minute podcast, and then that was it.
15 minutes, talk about what you had to talk about, and then turn it in and never look at it again.
Right, never thought about it, never did it, yeah. So did you guys have to like listen to everybody else's podcasts as well?
No, it was for like a assessment. Instead of doing it, we did the short form podcast thing, and we had to turn it in, and that was just test grade.
So there wasn't any like feedback from the group either, from the class. It was just like whatever the teacher wanted to give you was great. You got it. Got it. Okay, well, I mean, that's one way to do it. Ideally, like it's your feedback is the important part. So it would have been probably good to like say, okay, well, here's the podcast, right? Everybody kind of grade in terms of like other people, and then you kind of maybe the grading scale that you guys did on content, amusability, right? Engagement.
Well, that's like what entertaining.
Yeah, but like everybody then should have
like everybody in the class grades it differently. Like you take like the average, and then that's
great on that.
It's not a bad idea,
right? Well, because it's also important too. Like you have different styles, you have different people that are in the class, and so it also kind of helps to understand and talk to like that sort of prospect. Where in business, right? If we're talking like in the business aspect, so many people try to talk to everybody. What I have so many conversations with business owners, and I ask them, well, what's your niche? And everybody's like, I don't have one. I'm trying to figure that out. And I'm like, or they say, I serve everybody. And ultimately, you can't serve everybody, you serve no one. And also, the people who try to serve everybody are dime a dozen. And so you're basically, if all you're saying is I'm going to compete on service to everybody, then what you're basically saying to yourself is that you're willing to compete on price. Because ultimately, if you serve out everybody, they can go to John Smith down the road, Jane Smith across town, and they're going to get a better price because they also service everybody. So if you want to stand out, you have to pick those like 2 or 3 sort of industries to really be right and market towards those industries. Now the beauty of that is that if there's like sister industries or kind of similar industries, you're still going to attract people because they're going to see your ad potentially and they're going to say, oh, I need that. Right? Yeah, that maybe they can help. They're still going to reach out even if you're niche. And now when you get niche, now you get charged, right? Because you're specific in their industry and their industry, right? You can help them with struggles that just they have. Instead of saying, well, John, Jane down the road, they service everybody. So maybe they only have 1 or 2 of your type of clients and they're not familiar with the industry struggles. They're not familiar with the industry metrics. And so they then go to, if you're in home services and they're like, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to service retail market. Well, those are kind of 2 different niche space, right? Or I'm going to go do a web service. So it's really hard to service everybody and actually make an impact. You really need a niche down. And so if you think about like you got something in your eye.
My eye keeps watering. I don't know why.
Am I making you cry? Like what's up?
My eye keeps watering, bro. Don't know what's happening with that.
That's funny. But think about that. So like when you do something in a project or whatever, like you have to think like who's your target audience? And in your case, target audience is
everyone wants to learn about that topic.
That if you're doing something with a broader range, but if you're doing something specific for the teacher, now you have to generate whatever it is for your teacher and what you know about your teacher, right? Because that's where your grade, right, or your results are going to come from. If you're talking like in real life and business, So if you're talking to a teacher and you know that a teacher has constantly contradicted you, or not contradicted you, but corrected you on some fashion of a piece of writing or something that you missed, then when you go to present a paper or something to that teacher, you better make sure that you are correcting that issue, which we've talked about a little about with your writing side. Or neatness of your writing. Okay, yeah. The neatness of your handwriting. And so when you go into that class, it is very important for you because your audience is that teacher to pay more attention in that instance to how neat you're writing your papers, right? Or your answers. And obviously it's been only like a month or so since we had that conversation, but hopefully, you've used that and it's garnered you some better results.
Yeah. Handwriting's after you do it for so long.
16 years. So, well, do it. And in business, do it as well, because essentially niche down, pick those 2 or 3 that you enjoy working with, that you have experience working with, and then niche down and start messaging towards those 2 or 3 markets, those 2 or 3 business markets. Because ultimately, one, it's going to be easier to write content because you can speak directly to them. You can speak directly about experiences, about storytelling, about results towards that industry. And 2, you're going to be able to get people to see themselves in that situation better because you're talking directly to them. So if that's you and you're like I'm not really good at copy generation. I'm not really good at, kind of making email copy or campaigns. Pick one industry and start there and write specifically towards that industry. Write specifically towards an experience or a result that you've seen from a client that you've worked with, and then go with that and tell a story about that. And now what's beautiful about storytelling in social media or in email marketing, you can do it over multiple. So you can break it up, and it kind of creates that. It's kind of like a TV show, right? You're always at the best part, and then what does it do? There's a commercial break. Yeah, either cuts to a commercial break because you're going to stay and come back, or it ends the episode, and now you got to wait for next week. And I hate that, but it
gets you to think about it the whole next week.
Correct. Or if you're binge watching, you don't have that issue, but you can't really binge anything if it's, but so storytelling is really important, and it can even relate to school too, but I saw something the other day too where I think it was a Harvard study, and we talked about on this a couple of the past episodes about having AI and the impact that it can potentially have in the future in schooling. And Harvard did a study where they had an AI tutor with students, and they did a study where like half the students got to work with the AI tutor, and then the other half didn't. What would you think the results were?
The AI tutors probably did a little bit better because they could personalize it to teach them what they wanted to teach.
And when you say what does a little bit better mean? Like, what does that mean for you? Because obviously a little bit can be different for everybody. But
like that could be different between like a B+ and an A.
Okay.
Or a B and A-.
Right. Well, the results of Harvard, the students who actually used the AI tutor got two times better grades.
So they got a C.
They
one got an A.
Mm-hmm. They improved their test grades pretty much. Yeah, because of the stuff that we've been talking about, right? Is that you can customize it. It can break things down. I mean, this is nothing against teachers. Teachers are very important in our industry, right? In our world. But there's only one of them for every classroom. That's what we've kind of been saying, is that an AI tutor can then supplement. Just like you have tutors now, human tutors, but even then, they're servicing so many other students.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had a personalized tutor just for you, and it could help you on specific topics, right? And break it down in ways that maybe other people haven't even thought about breaking it down, that you learn your style. Of course it's going to help you. How wouldn't it help? And so that's why I think it's going to come sooner rather than later, where it's going to be integrated. There's going to be some sort of AI company out there that has these tutors available, that start working with the schools and can personalize it for each one of the students in the school that needs it or that wants it. And ultimately, it's not. I don't think it's what makes people dumber about AI is if you just rely on it.
Just use it for the answer.
Mm-hmm. AI can make you smarter if you use it and you follow up with it in the right way. So cool. And I know you had a couple questions last week too. So was there anything else sort of come up or anything that you like that you've been working on that you're like, man, I didn't really realize that all that went into a business? Maybe because that I'm sure there's people out there watching, right, that are maybe thinking about getting in business, or maybe even your age, right, that don't know something about business, and maybe we can talk about it.
Probably like all the stuff that goes into making a website.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, because so to give us a rundown of what you've kind of been doing earlier this week. Yeah, give us a rundown.
So you take. Well, we already have the website up for the Triumph Business Solutions, and so I was taking that website, running it through Stitch, while also going and finding other reference websites with things that in it I like, whether that's the hero section, the title of it, or like how the buttons move when you press a certain button, or like hover over something,
right?
And then taking those, copying those, putting them in as a reference, and say, hey, take this website, use it as a reference to make this website have this, and this.
Right. And from like you prior to past week or so, you've never looked at a website in terms of like yeah, you kind of just like look at their website and be like, okay, that's cool. Like it's funny because when I first asked them, like, the process would be going out and instructing them of going out and finding some websites and things that you like that are kind of along the same aspects of the website that get your attention. And your first thought was, what was your? You're like, oh, well, I really like. What was the site that you said that you really liked off the bat?
Like ESPN.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I like ESPN's website, or I like MLB's website. It's like, okay, great. But those aren't necessarily exactly what we're looking for here. Like, those are more news sites. So as a business owner, if you're thinking of how do I redesign my website, or it's been a while, I need to update my website. There's a few sources out there, website specific, like Pinterest is a good one where people kind of post some good website designs. I think there's like I can't remember it, and I know it's in the video I sent you that we'll look at later. But I think it was called Award, like 2 or 3 R's in it, where web designers put up design aspects of websites that they built, and so you can go to these different sites and literally see, okay, well, I like that. I like how the typography is on that site, or I like the background on this site, and bring that into Stitch, which Stitch is like that visual aspect builder for the website, right? And you kind of say, well, I like these different things. Kind of build me a couple variants, and here's our company. Here's our current website, but let's update it, and it'll bring in some of the information from your current website, kind of recreate it. And the beauty of that is that then you can take that out if you're using Claude Code or using any sort of website code generator for your business, and you drop that in. It's not going to be a finished product. You still want to polish it and like, but it's a start, right? It's a visual start. Which, if you're using AI and you're just saying, okay, I want to go and prompt me a website, as you were running into, and I had to correct you, right, point you in the right direction, it doesn't always know what you're trying to do, especially when you don't give it a visual. And AI, any sort of code, Claude, whatever it is, it can't visualize what we do, which is why it's so important to still have a human element in your prompting, in your coding, whatever it is, to make an impact and to give it the examples. And so, with that experience, what is kind of caught your attention that you're glad that you know now that you didn't know before, when it comes to like the visual elements and the website?
Like what? I'm confused on what you're asking. Like, what do you?
Well, what stood out to you most of that
to
process? Yeah, of that process. What stood out to you that you're glad that you learned?
Probably like going and finding references and not just because, like you just said, if I had just going with how I was going without looking at websites, it would have taken me years to get just one little section of it done.
Right.
I would have had to like a whole explanation of everything that I wanted to do.
And you probably gotten frustrated. Why isn't this doing what I wanted to do? Like I'm explaining it right. I want the background, that's the visual, or the font size, font size, the actual font family. And instead of, if you just gave it references and been a little bit specific,
you would have got it right the first time.
It would have gotten it right probably the first time, or at least close. Yeah. But you're right. But so many people are still stuck in, they just prompt, and then if it doesn't come back, then they get frustrated. And ultimately, there is still those steps that you have to preemptively take, which is also why with Claude Code, all of that, when you're working with the skills, you can teach it those things. And then the other side of it is there's so many other resources out there for you, and this is why I was talking to you, because it's really important with the Claude Code side of things, that you just always try to consume something for 20 to 30 minutes a day. 20 to 30 minutes a day, consuming, learning, makes you 100 times better than the people who are just passively listening, passively paying attention. that's where you're going to kind of begin to stand out. So you listening or watching this, take even 10 minutes, put you ahead of the game for a year. But if you can take 20 or 30 minutes driving, listen to a podcast, while you're driving. If you're in the shower, turn on a podcast on your phone in the shower. Like, you have 20 or 30 minutes. I hear it all the time. So I don't have the time in the day.
You're in the car.
I've heard you tell me that too. I don't have that. I don't. Yes, you do. I can find you time. Absolutely. Like, I will bet any amount of money that I could find 20 or 30 minutes in your day to level yourself up. It's right now, it's not a priority. And if it's not a priority, you're not going to find the time. But if it's a priority, then you'll find it. I guarantee it. And so you just have to make it a priority. But if you take those 20 to 30 minutes and you watch a podcast, right, or you read something about AI, or you read about a new GitHub open source repo that has some skills in it that are going to help you level up your coding, your co-working, and you do that every single day for even 6 months, 12 months, you have just leveled yourself up so much. You will look back at yourself in 6 to 12 months and be like, where was I? I said that. I said that last, I think it was last episode or maybe the episode before, where if you'd asked me 6 months ago what a CLI was, or a terminal, or a bash command, I would have told you what. I would have been like, I don't know what you're talking about, because I was a financial, great leadership, experience all my life. But now I know what those, right? I don't know how to necessarily like create them off the bat, but I know exactly what they're doing. I know what they're meant to do. That's just me taking those 15, 20, 30 minutes a day to constantly watch video. So if you're doom scrolling, there's your time. If you're sitting down at the end of the day and you're binge watching 2 or 3 episodes of the show, there's your time. Watch one episode and then you pull up YouTube and watch a couple podcasts or a couple short videos on some new skills. You have the time. I guarantee you have the time. Just like you mentioned on the way here, about basics. It's your passion. You want to play. You want to play college. It's something you're good at. But hasn't necessarily been a top priority, right? But you mentioned on the way here, what did you say?
I gotta practice way more, find way more time to do it.
Right.
Hopefully get up to an hour a day doing it.
Right. And what are you at now, would you say, on an average?
Average? No more than 10 minutes.
Right.
Well, unless you count doing J-bands.
Right. But you also have games and stuff like that
too.
But ultimately, it's your priority. I could tell you, and I didn't say to you, right, how important it is to get out, do work, ask coach for extra time, get some extra swings in or get some extra blocking practice in since you were young, but I can't force your priority on you, right? You have to make it a priority. Now that it is a priority, now you got to take action, and I can't force you to do action, or else you're just going to push back. You have to do it internally. So there's a difference between internal motivation and an external motivation.
It's like doing chores.
Right.
When you want to go, if the kid wants to go do something and they're like, oh, I'm trying to parents by doing this, and they're on their way to do that. Their dad or mom says, hey, go do this. And they're like, well, now I don't want to do it anymore. So I was just going to do it on my own. Now you're telling me to do it, so I don't want to do it.
Even though you still want to.
Yeah. It's like, you want to help them, and that's why you're going to go do it. Empty the dishwasher. You're on your way to go empty the dishwasher.
Right.
And then right as you're standing in front of the dishwasher, about to open it, your mom or dad goes, hey, can you empty the dishwasher? Now it's like, I'm doing it for them instead of doing it for myself. So that it makes you think a lot of kids, I don't want to do it. And then just
interesting. So you still wouldn't want to do it for yourself, but also doing it for them too, just because they asked?
It would make you mad. It makes most kids mad when they're like, well, I'm going to do this on my own will. And then they get told to do it as they're on their way.
Interesting.
Think about what would you think as a kid if grandma told you to go do something right as you were about to?
I mean, that's a good question, but I mean, I'm old as shit, so I don't remember.
Well, yeah, that's obvious.
But
Look at your beard.
I mean, I guess me, if I'm gonna go do something, and I think about it like experiences now, like with Tanya and everything at home. But like, if I'm gonna go do something, and then she says, "Hey, by the way, could you do that?" I just say, "Oh yeah, I would do that. I was doing that anyways." You know what I mean?
Well, yeah,
And
but
I think that's the difference in growing up,
yeah.
right?
It's like as like when you're a kid, you're like, "Ooh, I'm so happy. I'm gonna make my parents proud,"
And then they ruin
and
the
then they
surprise.
ruin the surprise, and you're like, "I don't do it anymore." Now, like, I'm not, because like there's a different reaction from your parents when they do something without being told and do something when you aren't.
Yeah.
So when you do it without being told, and they're all happy, and then but when they tell you, they're just like, "Oh yeah, go back to whatever you were doing before."
Okay. But don't you feel that you could also still make them happy if you were to say, "Well, yeah, I think you saying that. I was actually on my way to do it, so I appreciate the reminder."
Well, yeah, but then also at the same time, your parents would then be like, so most parents aren't gonna believe you. They're gonna be like, "Oh, you sure you were really gonna do that, or were you just telling me that?"
No, I think parents would say, "Oh, okay, I appreciate you." The good one.
Well, yeah.
I guess good one's just one thing to say, but if there is, I guess for me, it's really hard for me to understand why, if you are on your way to do something, and I say to you, "Can you go do this?" And you're like, "Oh yeah, I was just about to do that. Appreciate the reminder." Why I would get, or why I would question, right? Unless unless I say that to you, and then you tell me, "Oh, I'm just on my way to do it. I appreciate your reminder," and then it doesn't get done.
Well, yeah.
That's when I'm always, and then that constantly
That's like,
happens. Then it's like, "Well, wait a minute. Were you really? Or are you just
were
saying that?"
were
Because
you
it
just
never
saying that to
happens that
say
yeah,
it?
exactly. But if you always follow through and
Then there's no
you,
way to not believe 'em.
yeah, then there's definitely no reason not to believe it. Why, as a parent, would I be like, "Oh, well, are you really gonna go do that just because I told you?" No, I think I would believe it because it's been happening. And results, just like in business and in life, results are always gonna speak for themselves. So if you constantly are following up and you're constantly doing things, even if somebody happens to remind you the moment you're going to do it, the result still speaks for it. So, maybe that's something that you've talked about, like, with friends or you have experience, but I would say definitely, like,
Well, I've experienced.
"Oh, well, there you go."
I'm just saying from what people have said.
Right. So then you just say, like, "Why?" Like, just still do it. Because ultimately those results are what's gonna, and the more and more you do it, the less your parents feel like they have to remind you. And you're gonna be able to have those times to surprise them in the future. Um, but that's a good point, and 'cause it really applies to, like, life as well, so, but, any other questions or thoughts that come up or anything? Like, what about your business? 'Cause you're in what class are you in now in
Sports entertainment marketing.
sports entertainment marketing? What's been something, and you're probably not focusing on small business, right?
No, it's like the big stuff.
Okay. So what on marketing, what is something recently that, like, you've learned in sports management marketing class that was either new or something that kind of was something that you've seen, but maybe it was presented in a different way that you didn't think about it that way?
Making me think back to spring break.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I am.
Especially when it's right at the end of spring break, like right after
Yeah,
like everything's already gone. Um,
that's okay.
let's think about this. What have we have to talk about anything. We were just talking about March Madness.
Okay, you were talking about March Madness.
And then it was before that was the Super Bowl. What did recently that I can remember. I really can't think of it off the top of my head right now. What we've done recently.
Well, one of the biggest things that when you focus on large companies, and especially if you're combining that with entrepreneurship, which I know eventually is a class that you want to take in the
Either
future.
next year, junior year, yeah.
The biggest difference between big company and small business is the money, right?
You can't spend that much money on marketing with a smaller business.
Exactly, because you're not going to have the funding, so you have to be different, and you have to think different. When you think of big company marketing, it's pretty much how many times can we get in front of you and give you the same message over and over and over again.
Little
And
ones gotta just
right,
like get to the point. Like you gotta be cheesy with it a little bit,
a
so that
little
like
bit,
so that it stays in their head and they think about it.
right.
Because if you don't have like a catchphrase or something that's like sticky, then in 1 year you're not
Right.
gonna remember the thing.
And especially because you're only able to possibly do that maybe 1 or 2 times, you know? Otherwise, like, Coke's everywhere. They're on billboards, they're on, TV shows, they're on, $1,000,000, Super Bowl ad. They can be in your face all the time. But your mom and pop, right? You out there or me, right? We have to think differently in our outreach and our marketing. It has to be more personal, right? It's gotta be, as you said, a little bit more cheesy, but professional, right? Cheesy with a memorable. I guess cheesy would be like a memorable like
Like
tagline or
yeah,
memorable, kind of message. Um, and I do think that it comes down to speak to the outcome. The outcome and the resolution that you're going to give people is what's going to help you stand out when you're doing marketing as a small business owner. Because that's what's going to resonate the most with people is what can you do for me, and then the pain point of I need this now, right? So there's urgency, there's the outcome, which not a lot of bigger companies do. They just kind of hit you with their phone number, they hit you with their name and their tagline and their website because they know they're going to do that 100 times to you. Eventually, it's the name recognition. Just like with politics, right? All they do is they put their name out there. They have all these ads all the time because they're just name recognition. You don't have that ability in small business owners. So, are they in your marketing class? Do they compare those differences with you, or is it always just big marketing stuff?
well, I don't think I'm pretty sure our entrepreneur
Entrepreneurship.
that word
Yeah.
that they probably get into it more about small businesses, but in sports and marketing now, it's just everything just like Nike, ESPN, all that.
Right. Interesting. And I know obviously sports is something you're involved in or that you have an interest in. So I'm sure that it's interesting to you. So it'd be good to see kind of the comparisons as you get into the entrepreneurship class, whether it's next year or the year after in your senior year, the differences and if they begin to break that down in terms of the outreach marketing that you need to do and the differences you need to do that. So, and there's so many different realms that go into it. It's not just create an ad and post it. there's so many different mediums, so many different and here's the thing: when you get into business, you are literally going to be bombarded with we're the best option, right? Or we're going to get the results and all of it, whether it's you know normal media, TV, radio, or Facebook ads now, Google ads now. There's just so many different mediums, and then you're bombarded with people that are like, "I can guarantee you X amount of leads." Okay, show me first, and how about I pay you out? But they always want their money up front. They want their money up front. They don't. They're not willing to do it for the results, and ultimately, you have to decide. One, can you do it for yourself, and ultimately, that's what I suggest for a lot of people. Do it for yourself first. Figure out what works, and then you can hire somebody to take what you know works and go out. But I think a lot of people want the quick results now, and if you're willing to, um, if you're willing to learn, you're willing to take that time to invest. That's where you're going to see the long term results. And I think that's where it's a struggle, you know, um, especially when you're younger and you have a family where they don't understand. You want to get in business where you want to do people, right? So it's really hard for some people to understand your desire, how much that means to you, and it's going to require sacrifices. You know what I mean? You are going to get up early, to go right to the Y or whatever, to work out, or to wake up early to set up a tee in the backyard to get swings in, or to get in the backyard before school or early on in the morning and put up a net and measure out the distance from home to second to get your. There you go. See, I didn't know that. You knew it.
7 feet 7 inches.
There you go. But measure that out in the backyard and put a net up and put a trash can on the side and hit that and for 20 minutes a day, do your pops and get your throws down. That's what's going to make you better. But people who don't understand it, and this will be friends, this will be, even family. Why are you doing that? You shouldn't be doing that. It doesn't matter. Your chances, blah blah blah, whatever it is. I heard that, and it gets into your head. So ultimately, what you need to do is you need to say, okay, I get it, your opinion, but it's important to me.
Well,
so I'm going to go.
MLB for high schools like .0082. It sounds like scary. I don't remember exactly what it is, but the percentages are.
And so do you have it? Pull that out. That's actually
it's 0.062%.
Zero
to make
0.06%, less than a 1% chance
to make the MLB for a regular high school from any high school player.
Okay, so and that's to go
MLB.
That's not necessarily getting into minors or playing minor. Or
minors is I think 2%.
Okay, makes sense. But so what does that mean? If you have that on your back, right? So what does that mean to you on a daily basis?
Become part of that 0.062%.
How? What are you doing differently now since you put that on your back on your home that you weren't doing before you put it on?
Doing stuff like J bands in the bedroom on a J hook in the wall.
Okay.
Doing things like having that 25-pound weight that you swing with a bat.
Okay.
To work on bat speed. Going outside, hitting off the tee. As long as it's decent weather outside, you can hit outside. Or playing catch. Just anything that works on baseball.
And are you doing this every day, like you said you want to? Because remember, this morning you said you want to do better. You want to do better.
Well, the J band is the weight thing I do pretty much every day.
Okay.
Except for I don't have the J bands at your house because I don't have a hook in the wall.
Okay. But those are the things that, when it does become that motivating factor, that you have to find the way to always do it, right? And that is important, right? To motivate on your background of your screen. But if it's not forcing you to do things differently, right? To think differently, to get rid of the excuses, because basically that's what's that. You have to be better than 99%.
More than
99.4%, right? Of all high school kids right now. You have to be doing more work, right? Get better, more effort. And the question you have to ask, and we talked about this in the mirror moment, right? We've talked about this as a business owner. 82% of business owners are going to fail because of cash management. But 18% don't. But what you have to do is you have to use that as a motivating factor. And at the end of every day, as a business owner or as my son, looking to be part of that 0.6%, is you literally have to ask yourself at the end of every day in front of the mirror, did I do what I needed to do to be better than 99.5% of everybody else out there in high school? And if the answer is no, you got to be better at the next day. And you don't beat yourself up. You don't put yourself down. You just say, what did I do? What did I miss? What opportunity did I miss today? And then learn from that the next day. Okay? So here's a lesson. You just said that you need to hit off the tee every single day. But you gave yourself an out. What was that out that you gave yourself? An out. You gave yourself an out to not have to do it. Right? What did you say immediately after when you said, I should hit off the tee every day outside? And then what did you follow that up with? Which is subconsciously you giving yourself an out to not have to do that every day?
Weather.
Yes. Right. That isn't that you now subconsciously have given yourself that out, that if it's cold that day or it's rainy that day.
Cold.
Okay, but
Talk about
either way.
rain and thunderstorm.
Okay.
I don't get hit by lightning with a giant metal rod in hand.
I get it. But you've given yourself that out because you now default to that excuse instead of finding an alternative. Right?
The alternative would be
The
swinging
alternative,
with the weight.
or finding a spot, right, in the garage, finding a spot under that, I think at your mom's house, right, you have a canopy outside that even if it's raining,
That's completely full with popping.
find some space. You don't need that much space to hit into a tee, right? Into a net.
I don't think there's enough space to fit in that.
We can make it work, right? If again, it's one of those things where if you wanted it to happen, you can make it work. And you say, hey, Papa, I'm going to help you clean some of this out. Can I move some of this around? I guarantee, knowing your grandpa, right, and your mom, he would say, yeah, sure. Let's figure it out. Right? He'd help you probably. And if you said, I'm going to help you move some stuff around, let me do this so I can do this for 15, 20 minutes a day, pretty sure your grandpa would be like, yeah, let's figure it out. You know what I mean? So that's the stuff that you have to kind of pay attention to, because you unconsciously said that to give yourself an out. And in business, it could be the same way. It could be, well, I know I should be 20 or 30 outreach a day, but well, I had meetings, right? But did you have meetings today? Were you busy all day? It's things that you have to constantly review at the end of the day. It's a self check-in at the end of the day. Your moment. So when you go and again, we're making all these analogies with baseball, but you can take these into your life and business because they're the same way. So you, for yourself, brother, can go and look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and say, am I better than the 99.5%? And if the answer is no, you look back at the day and say, what could I have done differently today that would have made me better than the 99.5%? And then you say, okay, this is what I have to do to correct it. Whether it's, you and Ryan, the guy, your buddy that's a catcher as well. Let's get some time together. Like let's agree to show up an hour and a half early instead of an hour early to get ready to get some throws in and practice our pop times or whatever. And then you got the guy down at one of you play second, the other not. Or
yeah, you do pop times.
Yeah,
same distance.
Yeah, you just do the same distance. Like one of you throw 5 balls down, and then the other guy throws 5 balls back. That's what you got to do. And now he's getting better because he's a year ahead of you, right? So he's going to be going off to college. There's no. If this is the other thing that I learned is I always looked at the guy ahead of me like with resentment. And I don't know, like when you look at Ryan, do you wish that you were starting over him right now? Like obviously he's senior or not senior, junior, but he's 1 year ahead of you. But do you look and you're like, I wish I was starting instead of him?
Yeah.
Okay. But do you resent him for it or okay. So what you
or starting
over? Okay. And again, there's nothing wrong with you thinking that you're better because you have to. Like
all I gotta do is I said it.
But here's
I have a better arm and all that.
Okay. But it's not just him you have to worry about, right? You have 99.5%
every other
catcher in high school, and then there's more coming up at the time. And you got to be better. And so really your competition is your high school, teammate, right? It's everybody. And you have to also, while doing that, do it in a way that you're picking everybody else up because everybody's getting better. You helping Ryan be a better starting catcher eventually is going to result in you being a better starting catcher. And eventually hitting, right? I think you both need help hitting.
Oh, that's obvious.
Okay, so then figuring out times, with it to go out and hey, let's go to the cages, right? Or let's do something on the weekends. Like you have days off. Like your days off can always be doing more than the days that you're on. Like the days that you're on the day of the game, that's where you show up, you get some of that extra 20, 30 minutes of like the actual skill. And then the other days is where you spend more time doing some of that stuff that makes you a better hitter, right? Learning, taking going through the mechanics. But in business, it's the same way. You you focus on what can I do, what should I be doing, and how can I make it happen? And it's a mere moment in work, you know. So that would be I guess my personal challenge to you, right? Is again, I can sit here and I can tell you in and out everything that you should be doing. But I'm at the point where it's like, hey man, I've told you everything. I've given you the insights, right? Grandpa, we talked about this on the way here, man. Grandpa should have been drafted by Pirates, and he got married instead. He was invited back. Everything, that he's always told me, I've passed down to you, but I can't force you to do it. And at this point, it's got to be an internal motivation versus an external. And so it seems like you have it. I love the fact that you put it on your background without even like being prompted. Like those are the things. Like, so if you have a goal, you have a vision, you have a life. Put it where you see it on a regular basis and use that as motivation. Right? Put it on your mirror. Put a post-it note on your mirror of that goal. You should have that not just on your phone background. Right? It should be written on the front of your notebook at school. It should be written on your mirror, and not permanent.
Permanent mark.
Yeah.
I think a big old flag being right on your mirror.
I don't think your mom would be happy with that. But those things, because the more you get, the more it's subconsciously in your brain. But then also paying attention to kind of like what you say, and are you finding excuses to not do what you need to do, or are you finding alternatives to do the things that that are important that make you better than the other night? So I'm proud of you for like literally seeing that, but ultimately you don't need right? You don't need me to be. The question is, are you proud of yourself, right? Are you proud of the effort that you put in? Because ultimately that's all that matters. Me accepting that and what you do, that's not what's truly important. What's truly important is, can you accept what you're doing and the effort you're doing? I'm always, I mean, I'm your father, and I'm always proud of you. But you have yourself, and that's the truly motivating factor. That's number one. Before me or your stepdad or your mom, like any of that, like, you have to be proud of yourself before anybody else being proud of you matters. That's so. I don't know. And what does that mean to you?
What, like?
Yeah, like what is all that? What have you taken from that piece about your day to day and your goal of being the 0.6%?
Gotta not find that, like your brain as a human is always gonna think, like, what's a way to not, what's an excuse I can make to not have. So then you have to train your brain to, instead of making an excuse to not do it, make an excuse to get over that excuse.
Right.
Like make an excuse to make a path that goes around. If like there's 10 feet of snow outside, you can't go outside. Finding, I don't know, taking like a little wiffle ball, whacking against the wall with a wiffle ball. Still doing the same thing. You're swinging a bat and a ball, and it's not going to do any damage.
You hit it. Yeah.
You hit a wiffle ball hard enough to break something, that's impressive on its own. The wiffle ball can press.
Right. But yeah, you can find something in the basement, whether to do maybe it's extra weights that day or something. As you said, kind of swinging, but you need to swing every day, and that's what is important to you. So finding the time is going to be important, and for you as a business owner, it's going to be the outreach attempts, right? With the social content creation, the follow-ups, all those things. It is easy to default to, well, I didn't do it today because of X, Y, and Z. But ultimately, it does matter. And we call it, I called it with some other clients, I call it the Triumph 30, where first 30 minutes of the day you have to use those first 30 minutes to do what is most important, right? Get a task off the list in the first 30 minutes, and then you're going to feel like the rest of your day is a win. But if you don't basically take control of your time, give your calendar control, and you take it, and you're just going to be controlled by your calendar. You're going to be controlled by external circumstances. So you have to do what you want. And that's why I call it the triumph 30. Take the first 30, 45 minutes of your day, look at your task list, do the task list for 30, 45 minutes. After you've had your cup of coffee and gotten into the day, that's going to be your most productive time. And then once you do that, now you're going to feel like, well, that's a win. Let's keep going. And it's going to motivate you to keep moving forward. And sometimes it's those awkward things. I think a lot of people default into what's comfortable. Do you feel like you're in that boat? Do you try to stay in your comfort zone a lot?
Oh yeah. I'm a shy guy.
Yes.
Very shy guy.
I mean, you've grown and kind of expanded that a bit, but what do you feel like is that reason why you want to stay in your comfort zone?
Because it's comfortable.
And
it's like,
are you like afraid of doing something like wrong or being in a situation you've never been in? What is it that you feel like is keeping you in your comfort zone than stretching your comfort zone and doing some things that maybe you aren't necessarily comfortable with yet?
Because it's like, if you like when you go outside, it's gonna sometimes it's gonna be embarrassing. Sometimes you're gonna look funny to people, and it's like, do I really want that? And that's like, it's one of the things with like the human brain, where like you think that everybody, like for you to be cool or good or whatever, you have to fit what everybody else is doing. So when you're out of your comfort zone doing something different, your brain's gonna tell you, hey, this is like embarrassing because it's not
right
like everybody else.
And I think you kind of hit a little bit on it too, right? Because you're trying to fit in, right? You're trying to do what you feel the status quo is, and where that comes down is that the status quo is just the average, right? And so the only way, and again, I feel like you've gotten that part of me, so I apologize for that. But that's where I was. I was in the same boat. I didn't like going outside my comfort zone when I was a younger age. I kind of stayed where I was, and ultimately, what I've learned is that the more you stretch it, the more you do some things that are maybe uncomfortable, that becomes your new normal. And yeah, sure, you may make a mistake, or you may find something where somebody may make fun of you once or twice. But one, who's the person making fun of you? More often than not, it's gonna be people you don't even know anyway.
Some random person.
Right. Or it's going to be some people in school that you don't even hang out with, and it doesn't even matter. But then what happens now in 3 months when you do that thing and you become proficient at it and you stepped outside your comfort zone, those people are going to be looking at you and they're going to be like, oh, wow, I wish I could do that. I saw a great example is Mr. Beast. You watch Mr. Beast, we watch Mr. Beast together. And so in high school, when he first started making videos, right, he was made fun of. Everybody looked at Mr. Beast like, oh, look at that kid. Like, he's making videos for YouTube. Like, what an idiot. Like, he's so funny. Like, whatever. Now look at him. Who was right and who was wrong?
Mostly everybody was wrong.
Everybody was wrong. But in the moment, they felt like they were right because YouTube video content creation wasn't the norm then. And they thought they were right in the moment. When in reality, he gave them what he wanted to do, his passion, and he made it work. And now everybody looks up to him to do that same exact thing. There's probably some people from his class in high school that are like, man, I wish I would have followed along. And he had some friends there that are still working. And so you have to get and move past that fear or even caring what other people, because again, your internal motivation is completely different than everybody else, right? And where that part as well is hopefully you don't have that same sort of feeling towards other people when you see them doing maybe something that is outside the comfort zone. And so I would really challenge you to be outside your comfort zone. And so like when you see somebody, and this is one thing that I'm still getting over, but I would like to challenge you, and maybe I can challenge myself to do more of this as well. But when you see somebody that you know, walk up to them and say, "Hey man, just want to say hi. It's good seeing you." Right? I sometimes have a problem with that. I did that, I challenged myself. It was actually one of your hockey games. And there was a guy that I had played softball with a few years ago, Matt, and his son was playing on the other team. And I saw him, and years ago, I would just like go out of my way to not make eye contact, right? I would just be like, even though I knew the guy, but I noticed it, challenged it, and actually walked up and said, "Hey man, how you doing? What's new?" And I put myself outside my comfort because that is also something outside my comfort. Leading networking groups where I have to always meet people and talk to people that I don't know. I'm not really good all the time at small talk, so I have to do that. And I put myself in those situations over and over and over again. And so I would challenge you too to just anytime you see somebody that you know, just walk up and say, "Hey man, it's good seeing you," or "How are things going?" Just say hi. Like that is the first step of putting yourself outside your comfort zone. I think the second other thing that we've talked about in terms of your comfort zone is, you know, and I think it was last episode where you said you don't want people to have to give up time or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I would say challenge yourself to just make the offer. Would you be open to, coming in 15 minutes early to help me get some sleep? Your coach, even those things are what tell others that you're motivated, that you are dedicated to this. By just doing the minimum, that's what they just expect. That's the expectation. But being willing to put yourself out of your comfort zone to then go and ask for that extra support, that extra work, that extra training, that's what shows others that you're willing to do it, and that's what's actually gonna make you stand out by doing that kind of stuff. So, um, but yeah, so it's great. I mean, it's been an hour.
Already?
Yeah, time has flown. Was there anything else? I know, obviously you're back to school, so we won't be here, but I'm sure over the weekends will be, or over the summer
So, yeah.
when we have you on Fridays, we'll do more. We'll get back
No,
on
early Friday morning.
Friday morning game. Either that or when we're traveling in the hotel room, we can do it. But is there any other question? Like you had a great question in last week's episode. I thought was really good. But like any other, huh?
Like you life?
No. Well, the question about like kids in your class that are talking about they want to potentially kind of start something, but their parents are telling them no, but so anything else that, and if you haven't seen that, and it was a great question, JJ asked that, go look at last week's episode. I think it was really, I thought it was a really good conversation on different aspects, including AI, including kind of support. But that last question you asked specifically was, the kids in this class are a younger generation. They want to potentially, kind of go into business, but they have family members that don't understand it, or that are telling them they shouldn't. That's a bad decision. What would we say to them? And there is a few choice words in there, but other than that, in a nice way. So, other than that, go listen to that episode from last week. But for yourself, was there any other questions that before you go back to school, or anything else like that you wanted to ask in terms of business, or in terms of things that you and maybe some other people from your marketing class have talked about, or business have talked about? Anything that comes to mind?
Don't really, but I can think of it on top of my
Okay.
But
And then how about today's episode? What's one thing that you hope somebody watching this or listening to the replay, what's one thing that you hope they take away, or that you're taking away as well? What's one thing you're taking away to take back, right, to your mom's house and to your everyday life? What's something that you're taking away?
I'm taking away
Yeah.
one thing I would take away and something.
Yes.
Okay. So the thing I want to take away is it's gonna be sport related.
Right.
But coming up with that excuse to not let the excuses stop you from doing something if that makes any sense. That was the way too many times I used the word excuse.
But
Coming up with a compromise, then that's a better one. A compromise, an alternative to get around the first excuse.
Yeah. And this is going to take practice. Trust me, it's going to take practice. So the first thing is you need to have that 0.6% more places, right? Because if it's just on your phone and you don't have your phone in front of you, that's not that first, I guess, as you call it, excuse of the excuse. Because if you start thinking of an excuse and you see that number, that should prompt you the more you see it in your head. No, that's my excuse to not give myself an excuse. And so you have to have it. You have to have that in more places than just the background of your phone. And so, and then that's going to help you get over it and make that alternative option for yourself if the first version that you wanted to do doesn't happen. So that's going to be good. Is finding that alternative, finding that workaround. Stop making excuses, and that's ultimately stop. If you see yourself, so if you're telling yourself, "Oh, I'm breathing out," no, that's I can't do that. What can I do instead? That's what you ultimately would find for yourself. But so then that's for you, and obviously baseball and everything. But what's something you hope, like a business owner or even somebody watching like clip or anything? What's something that you hope they walk away with from today's episode?
If you have a goal, take that goal and put it everywhere so that you see that goal. Like you literally just took what I was going to say. Literally took exactly what I was going to say. Take that goal, put it everywhere so that when you try to make an excuse, you see it and it redirects your mind to not make up that excuse and go do it anyways.
Right.
Or come up with an alternative that's going to work the same, like work the same part of your brain if you're learning something. Work the same part of your business if like somebody called off sick or something like last minute, like you want a replacement for them that day. Like coming up with something that's going to be able to place them for that day or something like that. Or like if you have a goal on like, hey, I want to become a $100 million business by the end of the year. Like put that everywhere. So whenever like you wake up like the morning or something, and you're like, oh, I don't want to. You see that and you're like, I want to do this. Well, I'm going to go anyway.
Right. It's going to motivate you.
Yeah.
The goal is that it helps you a reset mindset when maybe you're in the wrong mindset. And I love $100 million business. Ultimately, people say goals. They typically use, I don't know if they ever taught you the SMART acronym about goal setting in school. Yeah. If they told you what SMART goals mean in your
business? I've slightly heard of it.
Okay, so the actual acronym is, S is for specific, right? So you want to have it a specific goal so that you can actually know what you're heading towards. M is measurable, so it's got to be something that's measurable. You don't want to just say, I want to have more revenue, or I want to get more clients. You can't measure. Right? It's got to be specific and measurable. You can't say, oh, the culture needs to be better in our organization. Like, how do you measure that?
You can't.
Right, you can't measure it. But what you say, our satisfaction scores or something to go up X%. That's what's going to be the result of culture. So you need it to be measurable. Now, A, I'm going to go back to because it's one I don't agree to. But R means it's relevant. So it's got to be relevant to where you're headed, right? Your path, your goal, your destination in business. Otherwise, why even set the goal? So it's got to be relevant. And then T is for time. So you have to have some sort of time restriction to the goal. You don't want to just leave it open-ended. So typically it's going to be like a quarterly goal, an annual goal, or like the next 3-year goal. But there needs to be some sort of time restriction on it that you give yourself in order to meet that goal. Now, let's go back to the A, and then we'll wrap this up. A in the actual acronym stands for attainable, right? So they want it to be something that you can reach. However, I disagree with that.
Higher, so
right?
You to go far.
Right. So the only time I agree with the A as an attainable is if you are in a and somebody is asking you, hey, what do you want your annual goals to be? And that goal specifically ties into like your bonus for that year or something like that. Then yes,
you can reach.
Yes, leave it as attainable. However,
you want to put it higher than what you think you can actually get to, right, so that you work harder and harder so that you could get progressively better over time.
Correct. And so I choose that to ambitions. So You want it to be smart, measurable, ambitious, relevant, and time restricted. And as you just said, JJ said, exactly why. You want something that's going to push you outside of your comfort zone, make you think differently to reach that goal. And here's the beauty of setting an ambitious goal is even if you don't reach that goal, okay, you failed probably higher than you would have set an attainable goal for. So you still win when you like feel that you're losing, but you're not losing because goals aren't necessarily like end all be all. Like if I say I want to make $20,000 a month, that's not where I want to end, right?
Be bad.
Right. I want to be $1 million. So it's like that's just a stepping stone. So yeah, if I hit 20,000, great, right? But that's attainable. You know, I want to set my goal at $1 million a month, and what do I need to do differently in order to get there? And then in a quarterly goal, you break that down into smaller goals. Maybe the next goal is, an ambitious would be $100,000 to go from 20 to 100,000. Well, if you were thinking of an attainable goal, I would probably say, well, let's go to 30. That's going to be an extra 30,000. That's attainable. But if I set it at 100 and I got to 50, did I win or did I lose?
You won because you were
I won.
originally you thought you were only going to get to 30, but you got 20K more.
Exactly. Now I'm at 50.
You wanted to get 100.
Exactly. And then the next ambitious would be 250 or 200. And now I may fail at 150. Or not fail, but maybe by the time the time is up, I get to 150, not 200. But my attainable I would have only been at 50 maybe. I would have went from 30 to 50 would have been mine. So I'm still $100,000 more by missing my goals because I set them as ambitious and I had to think. So that, along with everything else we talked about in this episode, I think is really important. But ultimately, as JJ was saying, your motivation has to come. I'm going to tag team on what he was saying as your takeaway. Your motivation has to be internal. It cannot be external. So if you're looking for an advisor, you're looking for a coach or a mentor or whatever that you feel is going to be like, oh yeah, this is going to put me over the edge, and you don't have the internal motivation, you're just going to waste money. And I'm telling you that as an advisor, as a mentor, because I can't force you to do anything as an advisor. I can point you in the right direction. As the adage says, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You have to have an internal motivation to want to make it work. And what is that? And whatever it is, it's got to be strong enough to make you think differently and put you outside of your normal day-to-day activity, right? You took the first step. You put it on the back of your phone. Would you say that has or has not been motivation enough for you to think differently?
I mean, has, but also hasn't.
Action. How about action?
Has and also hasn't.
Okay. But what you need to do. So, like, yes, it's changed a little bit, but has it been enough to make you action in a way that's going to get you outside of the norm?
Probably not.
Okay. Well, it's not. Is it probably not or not? Like, you have to be honest with me. Like this, okay, there you go. This is an honest moment. You have honestly said that, right? And now you take that and you say, okay, I'm honest with myself. What do I do? And you look at all those opportunities, and that's when you can correct it, right? And again, this is that moment, right? This is those times where you learn from. Okay, it's not a failure. Okay, it's never a failure. Failure is only when you stop moving, when you stop learning, you stop growing. This is an opportunity. I hope you see that. I hope you're not feeling like we're attacking, right? Or anything. Okay, good. So these are the times where you get to say, okay, what did I do? What can I do different? And then you let. And this is where hopefully now you can also use this to teach other people around you the same thing, because that's also what's going to make you a better teammate. It's going to make you a better leader in the future. It's going to make you a better, if you get to it, sports agent, right? That make you a better agent. You can teach all the people who are going to be younger as sports, athletes, all the lessons that that you've done yourself where you need. So, love it. And so with that, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. For those of you who don't know, we mentioned it last week. We are in Beta on the link now for our founding member access to our Triumph Business Solutions intelligence platform. And so this is a platform I put together. It's got 20 or over 20 tools now.
21.
21. It's got 21 tools, but we're adding to it constantly. So as a founding member, you get access to it. 7-day free trial before you have anything. But then after the 7 days, you get access to it at a $300 a month savings. So it's a crazy good deal right now. And you get access to all 21 tools, which includes like a proposal writer, an agreement writer, AI skills. There's an Ask Dave, so you can actually have a phone call with me. So I think that's a pretty cool, interesting tool that's in the software as well. But it learns who you are as a business owner and helps you specifically. It's not just generic AI, generic tools that are there to help you. Actually, they learns the business owner, learns what you do, and then brings that into the context as it's helping you create social content, create a social plan, build out descriptions and employee performance. And there's way more tools in there we can talk about here. But if you're interested in that, the link is in this link down below here. Feel free to go there, learn about it. I'll also drop it down below in the description as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, drop a question down below. If after the show, if you're watching the show and you have questions, drop it or shoot us an email in the comments. We will get you an answer back. Our goal is to support you as the business owner to help you overcome whatever it is that you're going through. So I hope you guys have a wonderful, amazing day. JJ, thanks for joining me again. I look forward to having you over the summer. These last 2 episodes were pretty cool. So we'll definitely do more of it. Or we just, later on we do some recordings and over the weekends or whatever, we record it or something. I don't know. But I think it was a good conversation. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Any last thoughts? No? All right. Well, for you watching, we love you. Thank you for being here. Again, if there's something you got from today's episode, share it down below what it was so we can do more of that in the future. And then do all that fun algorithm stuff. Give it a like. Make sure you're subscribed. When we post one of these, we go live every single Friday morning. As well as feel free to share this with the network. And we love you. We hope you have a wonderful and amazing rest of your week. But until then, hope you have a good one. We'll see you in the next one.